Thank you so much for staying with us. This is Sunday Politics, where we bring to the fore the top stories on the political scene in Nigeria, and we dissect them so you get a sense of what these issues are. Of course, we're talking about the implications of the Supreme Court judgment on the Nigeria's electoral system. Mr. Mike Igini has been talking to us on this. So you can also be part of the conversation. Don't forget that some of your thoughts, when you put them on Twitter, at the handles of Channels Television, at CTV Politics, and the hashtag we're using here is hashtag politics. They're going to be scrolling right there on your screen. Let me continue with the conversation now. Mr. Igini, it's interesting that one would think that if INEC has worked so much to introduce all of these, the card reader, the PVC, but it's not in the Electoral Act. Shouldn't that INEC had worked hard to make sure that it's provided in the Electoral Act so we don't see this kind of disagreement in the courtroom?
Thank you very much. I have made a point today, and people will be able to read my thoughts in the papers today. And I want to say this here. If you look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it does not tell you about free, fair, and credible elections. It tells you in chapter 5, chapter 6 of the offices established when to conduct elections into those offices and nothing more. Now, this is the broad-based vision of the country as expressed by the Constitution. Now, it is the National Assembly that now came forward in an effort to now see how to realize that broad objective of conducting free, fair, and credible election, which of course we will also not find in the Act. Now, once the National Assembly came up with an Act, it now gave INEC, under Section 153, power to issue manuals and guidelines, just like the court, rules of court. Because now INEC that is saddled with that responsibility has departments. Now operational matters, rightfully so, are not matters that you will find in the Constitution. They are not matters you find in the Electoral Act. Those are departmental decisions arising from operations. And that's why INEC has that power to do so. Don't forget the omnibus expression under paragraph 15 of the third schedule of the Constitution. We say that INEC has power to organize, to undertake, and to supervise the conduct of election in the country. Now, with this power given to INEC, you do not need to go back to the National Assembly. And how? Today, we are using what we call a permanent voters card, PVC. If you check the Constitution, the Constitution, the Electoral Act, you will not find the word PVC. Because these are operational things, routine, that could come up from time to time.
Which are in the guidelines.
Right. They are in the guideline, and manner which we have been given power because they knew, the lawmaker knew that there will be a whole lot of operational matters we are going to deal with.
I don't know if you've studied...
New acronyms will come up.
Okay.
All of that will not have to be there.
If you study some of the judgments from the tribunal up to some Supreme Court judgments, for example, the Ebonyi case, it's total stand away from the use of the card reader. And in fact, you will find some INEC-appointed lawyers standing against the use of the card readers.
Regrettably, which is a tragedy, I have read and have seen right from last year, even because the problem with Nigeria is that we don't talk about state house of assembly. The 991 state constituents don't talk about them. We have been following what has been going on, even before the Supreme Court. The debate has been on that external lawyers to the commission were the ones making a case against an innovation introduced by the commission. Is unfortunate. But interestingly, when Amina Zakari was acting, she responded when she set up a committee, and I recall that members of the committee in their findings also spoke to some of us. The role, what should be the role of INEC lawyer in a matter? INEC lawyer, your job is not, INEC did not award a trophy that must be defended at all costs. You are called upon to put evidence. You see, the monkey says that the child he has backed and the one in front. he can be more sure of the one before him. As a former commissioner in INEC, when lawyers have been given letter of appointment, I will sit them down and I said, in fact, when we give certificate of return, I tell people that, look, if there are issues in any of those areas where we deployed people with respect to how the return was either properly not made, be sure that when we get to the tribunal, it is for us to put those evidence before the court.
But it's interesting.
But regrettably,
some of these lawyers are shooting
but
this.
Back to the key issue here is that the PVC, you will not find it in the Electoral Act. In fact, when you talk about manual, in fact, the in case, the language of the court, I was a bit very worried when he said the corridor is good. Don't forget that as we speak, Supreme Court has not condemned corridor. Supreme Court, in fact, commended INEC. But what he said was that, okay, they did not put it into the act. The question is, do we need to put it into the act again? Because it's fall within our operational guidelines. And I give you the following instances. As we speak, Nigerians were asked to do what we call SIM card registration. When the SIM card registration started, several of us registered several times, and we were said to have failed. We went back again. Did we jettison the SIM registration? Similarly, the bank verification numbers. Many Nigerians have gone to the banks to go and register. Later you are told that you cannot access your account number. You go back. Have we jettisoned the BVN registration in Nigeria? The Immigration Act of 2015, go and check it. We used to have what we call a manual passport. Today we have an e-passport. These are routine things. Have we said because we have immigration officers right in the port, then of course we can no longer use the what do you call it, the e-passport, that you will have to go back to the National Assembly, right, and you will not find it in the Act.
All right, just
before you say that.
Okay.
Today we are using ATM cards. When you use your ATM card on Sunday, you can go and get money. Do you need to see any bank official? What we are saying is that Nigeria we have been having problem on the register because people rig election. A car reader will tell you the time that you were accredited, the particular time of everybody. It will show to you when you have been accredited. Right, but ordinary register, ordinary paper printed, you can take as many as you can.
Just a moment.
But with a car reader, it's not possible.
All right.
So they work together.
We've been listening to a man who knows the internal workings of the the Independent National Electoral Commissioner. Let me bring in someone who monitors elections, and of course, for several years, he has been on the ground, on the field, and I meet him at election venues. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ezen Wanwago of Partners for Electoral Reforms. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell me, are you surprised at some of the judgments of the court as relating to the elections of 2015? Like the INEC chairman said, this is the highest court cases that we have seen post-election in Nigeria.
No, Sean, let me thank Mike for those eye-opener for the contestation that is going on right now. I think that we are faced with making progress and making a reversal. And listening to you, I see you place a lot of confidence in what the court said or didn't say. But you will also realize that even in the U.S., when segregation was on, the court supported it. Apartheid was supported by law. So it is not as if the law, will always defend the good. So let's not make that mistake. There's a struggle in our society for electoral reforms, for progress in the way we conduct our elections. And everything that you see is a criminalization of technology. And I've made that point, that we're a country that fights technology because manualization introduces discretion. And anywhere you find discretion, there is corruption. So you have political elites who understand that once your electoral process is electronically or is technologically driven, then it is the end of business in terms of rigging elections, in terms of the malfeasance that we find in our electoral process. But my take is that there is nothing wrong with the card reader. There is nothing wrong with the permanent voters card. All that we need to do is to have attitudinal change within the staff of INEC themselves, especially the electoral officers, who most of the time, in most of the places, compromise this initiative that is meant to clean up our electoral system.
But Mr. Nwagu,
The second point that I need to make is that elections.
All right, go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
listening to you.
Land with your thought, please. Land with that second thought of yours.
All right, elections is not an all-comers affair. The fact that somebody is a lawyer, the fact that somebody is a judge, the fact that somebody is even a Supreme Court judge does not mean that he understands every issue that surrounds the elections and even the electoral process. INEC will have to make very serious efforts to train judges on even his own guidelines, on his own the introduction of all the guidelines that he's putting in place to make sure that our elections are sanitized. You find ignorance walking on four legs, even in terms when you read some of the judgments, when you read even some of the comments of the lawyers who comment about these issues. You, for instance, now you said I monitor elections. The truth is that civil society does not monitor elections. Election monitoring is the business of the EMB. We only observe elections. So even as little as the words that are used in this process, not all of us understand it. And I think that training is important. I think that we need to understand that it's a struggle between progress and reversal, and that as a people, we must make conscious effort to support the initiatives that INEC has put in place, especially from 2010, 2011 to 2015, to ensure that we not only widen the political space, that we make our elections completely all-inclusive.
All right. Tell me, should INEC have done something with all of these innovations before the 2015 election? Maybe they wouldn't have seen this kind of discountenance of some of these innovations in the courtrooms.
Well, that's why I talked about training. I think that we treat our judges with a lot of respect. We assume that they are all-knowing. We assume that they understand everything under the sun. But experience is showing that that is not the case. If there are new initiatives, if there are new... let's even look at it from a generational perspective. Many people in the age category of people who preside over even the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court cannot send text messages on the ordinary phones by themselves. That's the reality. Many of them still write manually, even in terms of the fact that you have technology. So you need to train them to understand where the country is moving at this point in time. Why is it that even our laws will criminalize electronic voting? Why do we make elections a ceremony? Why should it be an event when it can simply be a process? What is the problem in 2015, 2016 for me to close down the country, for the country to be closed down completely because we are having elections? That is not what is happening in other places. And I think we can take a cue from these places where people just simply vote. And I think the whole idea of our electoral process is to make sure that we remove all the impediments to progress, which includes electronic voting, which includes diaspora voting, which includes the use and deployment of full technology.
All right.
Because what you even have now is partial technology.
Mr.
What Mike has said.
Tell me, I remember vividly Professor Atahiru Jega saying the era of rigging and ballot stuffing was over before the 2015 election. But with some of the judgments that we are seeing, do you think that the PVC or even the card reader machine may be heading for an early grave?
We will not allow it to head to an early grave. The work that we do is to expand the political space and bring progress to electoral processes in our country. In spite of what a few people... And let me tell you, I think Mike reminded you of the fight, of the fight that was pitched against the introduction of technology by politicians themselves. They ambush electoral officers. They subvert the whole process of continuous voter registration. They pad the voter register in their different areas. And this itself is inimical to the kind of progress that we're looking for. It serves everybody, including the political class, if they understand that a clean voter register will be better in terms of even winning the election. But you find a political elite that rigs the election that they are going to win. election that they themselves determinedly will win, they work to make sure that it is also rigged to a point. You can't understand what mindset drives that. I've seen elections, for instance, where a particular political party won the election with very reasonable figures. But when the result was announced eventually, it was so, obscenely increased to such a point that you began to ask yourself why they didn't do that when they have won the elections ordinarily. So it's a mindset thing. It has to do with training. It has to do with continued advocacy. It has to do with media also understanding what the issues are and support the progress that has been made.
All right, we'll take a moment here on the program. And when we return, more revelations on the issues of the card readers and what have you. And of course, my guest is telling me of the exercise going on within INEC and this issue of our election. We'll take a moment. We'll be right back.